Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Bartu. Joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
Hey, he's back.
I'm back, and better than ever, El Presidentes.
Debatable. So we're here today to discuss a topic that Alfie came up with regarding DC and movies. So Alfie, how best to describe your topic here?
I think it's been pretty succinctly summed up by you. But just basically the idea was, if you've been in the DC lexicon lately, if you've checked social media or any kind of current news, you'll know that James Gunn and Peter Safran have been placed in a position that doesn't really have a name, but I guess just like head of DC films seems to be what they're going with. But it doesn't quite...
The specific job title is DC's Kevin Feige.
Yeah, there we go, right?
It's on the business cards.
But even more so, because Kevin Feige doesn't write the movies.
Yeah.
What they've basically done is they've kind of thrown their hands up in the air and be like, we give up. We don't know how to make this work. We've had like rampant successes. We're tired of flailing. Here's the keys to the kingdom. Make DC on film. And not just a DC film, make the entire enterprise. Give us a universe. Don't just do a couple things. We want a long-term thing. We want what we wanted all those years ago. We're now giving you all the power you need to do this. We'll see how that plays out, but that's just the sales pitch. So Ian kind of summarized of just like, what if you were James Gunn? Like, what if you were the person they approached, and not like you in this hypothetical world where like you're a movie maker or something, like just they called you up, they found your Discord, they got the Twitter DMs, you just get a message from Warner Brothers Entertainment, and they're like, Ian Harrington, Steve Maxey, we need you. We heard y'all, we watched Geeky Gentlemen, we heard y'all talking some shit. What would you do then? And you just have to be like, alright, here's what I go. And so the idea here as well wasn't just in the same way as Gunn, making one movie. It was like, give us a plan, give us multiple films, give us basically a pitch. And I talked to you guys to limit it to, I guess, what you'd consider the first phase of this. But I didn't put like a distinct number on that, so I think we might all have varying ones. But I think that's interesting because I think that's also part of like the fun factor of this is I feel like everyone's idea of it, even down to like how many films they should put out in this amount of time, is going to vary and lead to interesting results. And I know on Geeky Gentlemen, for long-time listeners, you've done stuff like this before for other like movie franchises, and I think this is a cool idea while we're still on the ground. There's going to be some announcements at the end of this month. So this episode might come out like timely with that.
Oh,
we don't know, but yeah, exactly. So I think now's the perfect time to do it, where we literally know nothing.
All right. So who wants to start us off here? Does anyone have like they're just raring to go?
I've got a pretty detailed one, so I don't mind kicking off.
All right.
At least with some of that.
Okay. Now, do we want to do? I guess clarification question for just structure of the episode. Do we want to do like the like whole phase one pitch each, or do we want to do like, here's the first movie that kicks off my phase one kind of thing?
I think just first movie, and then we can keep kind of going, kind of like almost like we do like the top 10 things where we go kind of, because some of these are going to be briefer than others, right? So I think you can just kind of go, all right, what's your first movie? Okay, boom, boom, boom. What's your first movie? What's your second movie? Boom, 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 boom. And then go from there until, like, whoever's got more left at the end.
Alrighty. Alright, and Alfie, what is your...
And if there's overlap,
Yeah,
we can, like, talk about that as well.
Sounds good, sounds good. Okay, Alfie, what is your first movie in your DC universe? Spoilers, it's Superman.
Golly. No one is ever going to predict what's my first movie in the DC. Yeah, it's Superman. And I've got titles for all of these as well.
Ooh.
But this one I can't take credit for because Steve said it, and I think it's objectively the right answer. It's just Superman the movie. I don't think this should have any title that's like extra fancy or be called Man of Tomorrow or Man of Steel or anything. This should be a mission statement of intent. Superman the movie. This is it. This is the Superman movie, and kind of treating it as like no one has made a Superman movie after Christopher Reeve except for this one, and this is the next big, like, this is the Superman movie of the next 100 years that we're moving forward as like a mission statement from the character, like big, like, because it's gonna have to carry the universe going forward, and because of that, I think it should be really confident and really kind of balls to the wall. Okay. At least in terms of just like in intent, not necessarily plot. Going a little deeper into it. And this will kind of become the apparent theme I kind of based my plans around, is I think they shouldn't do MCU where they try and find a formula. I don't think DC is built for that as a universe in the same way that Marvel is, where they're all kind of in the same city and they all know each other and they're made by the same creative teams and stuff. It's more of like a built upon theme where they're all kind of like science fiction or that kind of thing. Like, obviously Marvel expands into other areas, but I think like with DC you need to embrace the kind of patchwork nature of it and embrace that each of these should be a different genre. And I think leaning into genre with these films and moving away from just making them superhero films is what's going to make them entertaining to watch, no matter how many of them you make. So these aren't necessarily connected in the sense where they build on each other. They're all the same universe, but there's not going to be any post-credit scenes, and there's not going to be any setup for future movies. These just all are tales from one big DC universe that every now and again we get a glimpse at. So the first one with Superman is going to be a romance movie, and it's going to be about Superman, very heavily based on Grant Morrison's Action Comics run, the first early part of it. Where he's in the t-shirt and jeans. He can't quite fly yet. He can jump. He can take injuries from other things. He's just figuring it out, and he's a very young Superman. The difference between this and the Action Comics run is while that was very much focused on Superman growing into his powers and fighting big business, this is going to be part of that, but instead of being the pure focus, the focus of this is as he grows into his powers and becomes more confident as Superman, it's him accepting himself and feeling that he can be loved by Lois Lane. Like the idea of someone who had been a loner, someone who has kind of felt that he's different from everyone and he loves the world around him, but he doesn't feel the world around him loves him back. He feels like he's a guardian, an observer, and Lois kind of giving him a grounding and the fact that, no, you are one of us, this is your fight, this is you. As one of us, you're not separate. You don't have to feel that Superman is this untouchable thing that we need to be precious about. Superman deserves to be loved as much as anyone else does. Lex Luthor would be in this, but he wouldn't be the main villain. He'd just be an interesting supporting cast member. The main kind of conflict of this film would mostly be Superman versus like gangsters, because the main kind of plot would be structured more closer to a romance movie where the big developments are Superman and Lois, her trying to figure out the identity, him getting set up at the Daily Planet. That's the driving focus, and their chemistry is kind of the arc we want to go for, where the big third act climax would be when Superman, before his final fight against whatever version of a villain you want to throw in there. I think if you want to keep the big business theme, you could do a version of Brainiac that is still an alien, but an alien that's a lot more apathetic and is not an alien invasion story. It's like he's trying to take control of the world from like inside the system. He's trying to manipulate smaller people to do his bidding and to get the bottle city and control the culture without doing the big punch-up final alien like invasion story, like a different version of that. So maybe you can even have a Lobo in there as well as like the henchman figure of like if you're doing like a Kingpin style version of Brainiac. But the final like big emotional climax would be Superman explaining to Lois Lane why he dresses up as Clark Kent, why he does this, and kind of giving the general audience as a whole like a reason to kind of fall in love with Superman and to understand kind of the layers and depth of his character. Huge long swoosh. I promise they all won't be that long, but I feel like I wanted to get that one out there as much as I can.
Alrighty. I'll go ahead and go next, because I've got, like, I guess a novel in this day and age approach to this. So, first off the bat, I'm not going to do origins. Just period, flat out, no origin stories. All of these movies are just going to be, like, throwing you in, and the characters, the story, the world's just been going for years, and hey, now you're just picking it up. Or now you're just watching it for the first time. And I want to get that out of the way because my novel approach is going to be film adaptations of the best comics DC's ever done for each character, team book, what have you. So, like, the very first movie, I'd probably do Batman just because it's the most, recognizable franchise that they've got. And I think I'd go for, something that hasn't been adapted, like, in pieces. Because, like, your temptation would be, your year one's Long Halloween. But those have all been adapted in pieces here and there. So I'd want to do, kind of big. And my first inclination is to go for like Morrison, Batman and Son kind of thing, but I'd probably back off just a little bit from that one, and go with something that's just a tiny bit more accessible to a wider audience. So, trying to think of like a really good, strong, just Batman story that would just work better out the gate. And it'd probably end up being something like, not Hush. What the fuck is it called? Sorry, I'm tired. I'm gonna have a hard fucking time tonight. But that's just my vibes. Like, I'd probably go for something that's like a recognizable Batman name, and I wouldn't even like disguise the fact that it's an adaptation, and I wouldn't, change or try to rush a bunch of stuff like the direct-to-DVD animated adaptations did. I'd probably go for just a solid, this is the story adapted. Since I can't think of a Batman story tonight, I guess I'm going to change my direction and say a Justice League story, and I'd probably just start with, like, fucking Doom. Or not Doom, Tower of Babel.
Or Tower of Babel. Okay.
Tower of Babel, because, like, that one got adapted to Doom, and Doom sucked, but Tower of Babel is still such like a strong thing. And again, I have such a hard time with this because like my joke was going to be, all right, so first I'm going to make a Superman movie, then I'm going to make a movie where Batman and Superman fight each other, then that's going to go directly into a Justice League movie, because every idea about that worked for me, and so I'd kind of just want to take elements of that and just start with the Justice League, start with the big team movie. And so, yeah, fuck it with Tower of Babel, because that's just such a cool fucking concept. I'd maybe not be super 100% reliable, but not take as many liberties as the DCEU did, where, like, nobody in the book was in the Tower of Babel film adaptation. So it's somewhere of a bit of a middle ground, but just again more for that general tone where it's just like a really like a closer adaptation to the like most well-known, some of the best stories out there. Because yeah, the story worked and is popular for a reason, so fuck it.
What you got for Steve?
So at the risk of sounding repetitive, I was kind of more with Alfie in terms of how you want to launch big. The approach I have kind of has three sort of tiers, because there's the DC movies in the existing universe that are eventually going to come out that we know exist. There's the sort of big mission statement reboot that you'd want to do with James Gunn as the head. And then there's the where's the momentum to go forward in a long running narrative kind of way like the MCU does. And you can kind of get sucked into a rabbit hole of any one of them. So kind of separating those three out and saying let's focus on what's the overarching plot and then what are the sort of like big one-off stories that are worth watching, and leading it off with Superman the movie. I like the idea of a romantic comedy Superman movie, and I figured Alfie was just going to lead off with that. So I changed up my idea a little bit, and I decided what would be kind of cool to do and would be super bad for the general audience, but I still think would be kind of neat, is what if you made Superman Returns but it didn't suck? Like, what if the big grand movie here is it's Superman the movie, and it's Superman in the movie in a metatextual way, just like Superman Returns was, where the opening of this is Superman's come back to Earth and he's been gone for like 3, 4, 5 years. And he comes back and has to kind of get reacclimated to a world he called home, and at the same time sort of left behind without warning, and get used to the people around him and figure out what his role is in the universe. And so the sort of big meta idea is Superman has kind of been gone from our pop culture in a way that is both unceremonious and kind of felt like a betrayal of everything that we kind of expected the character to be for a long time. You have someone come into the role who's kind of like a blank slate, and he's just kind of asking the question that Lois does in Superman Returns, which is, does the world need Superman or not? And so the movie is a big mission statement to say, we haven't done anything with Superman in a really long time, but remember that feeling of that 1970s poster, of the idea that you'll believe a man can fly, and what does Superman have to do to kind of earn that back? And the whole arc of the movie is, well, it kind of doesn't have to do anything, because he's Superman. And the idea that he would come back and be himself is enough to endear us to him, and that would be the sort of like big climactic moment at the end of the film, is that he's not trying to fight off big monsters and save the day. He's not a symbol that people kind of rally behind because they're afraid of being crushed by Mongol or something. It's the sort of small everyday acts of kindness that make Superman worth being someone we can believe in. And I'd steal right from the end of the Superman Doomsday animated movie, where the big final shot is like people kind of gathered around Superman. They still haven't decided whether or not they want him back anymore. And then a little kid just kind of walks up to him and trusts him, and Superman smiles at him, and that's good enough. And that would be the end. And this is a good way, I think, to kind of slowly reintroduce all of Superman's supporting cast that we haven't done anything with. Like, you've obviously got Lois and Jimmy, but then like Steve Lombard and Cat Grant and Perry White, and maybe have one of the Kent parents, but not both of them. A little bit more of just like contextualizing of where the world is and what kind of villains has he already fought versus the ones we haven't heard of yet, and just kind of make it like a big, slow kind of mood piece about why did we walk away from Superman for so long, and what about him can make us want to go forward with him from there. And so that would be movie one, and then everything after this would kind of take a very different direction, but that'd be where I'd start.
Okay. We've all got kind of different ways of going. We've got Ian going with the more just let's just take the comics. The comics were good. They slap. Steve being like, why did we fall out of love with this thing that was always good? And then me being like, I understand why you didn't love this thing, but here's a different argument that you might not have heard before. So we're all starting from different places, but Ian, I'm about to join you for the second one.
Yeah.
Is my second movie is Justice League. Is I originally, because I agree with you, I originally, and Aaron's mentioned this as well, just start with a Justice League film is what I would ideally do in any normal circumstance. I don't think you can here because I think the bad rep of Justice League needs to get washed away first by like a good, like just Superman in a new universe movie first. But I do think you should get to Justice League as soon as possible because I think Justice League as a way to introduce why DC slaps and a whole bunch of different characters all at once is such an economic and really cool way of doing the shared universe thing without needing to do the boring, like, everyone gets an individual movie that's all kind of the same. So it says, no, just have a movie where all these random people shouldn't be together, and that's what makes it interesting. And because of that, my Justice League movie also isn't a typical movie, is sticking with the genre. This movie is called Justice League Unlimited, and it's a heist film.
Ooh.
So basically, the idea here is spoilers for my rest of my coming list. There is no solo Batman movie here. I'm assuming that Matt Reeves is still going to be doing his Batman stuff, so I don't really see the point in having a solo Batman stuff. It doesn't mean there won't be a version of Gotham and a version of Batman, because this is basically going to be your Batman movie, where Batman assembles the Justice League because something has been stolen that can threaten to destroy them all by Amanda Waller and Cadmus. And so the Justice League have to go against the US government without causing an international incident and get this thing that could potentially destroy their Camelot before it even gets started. And then the middle act reveal is that not only is this stealing from Ian's idea, it's also Tower of Babel, because the thing they stole are Batman's plans to defeat the Justice League. And now this team that Batman assembled is like, wait a fucking minute, what do you mean you had these? And so the arc of the movie is basically, does a Batman work in the orbit of these other characters? Can he be a team player? Does he work in these type of stories? And fundamentally, is he a good person? This version of Batman would be in the blue and gray. He'd have the yellow oval. He'd be hyper competent. We're talking like, we just don't explain why he can do martial arts good enough and he's taking out all these people. He's like Brave and the Bold Batman, where he's just that good. We don't need to do the Ben Affleck Batman thing where he's just kind of standing around aimlessly. He's like, no, this Batman he is Bat God from Jump, and that makes him scary. So Batman, in the course of this, will be our main POV character and also kind of our untrustworthy antagonist. And that would be the first Justice League movie. The roster I had in mind for this can change, but I wanted to have kind of the big hits and then some different ones where you get Superman, Flash, Black Canary, Wonder Woman, Batman, Mera, and Dr. Fate. And Dr. Fate would be not Kent Nelson. He can be any of the current successors, whatever your favorite pick is, but just to establish the idea that there was a prior Dr. Fate before him. If people want to down the line eventually make a JSA film or something like that without needing to go into the lore of that, just making that part of his character, but the helmet can be worn by anyone. Flash in this would be Barry still, but he can be whatever version of Barry you want to change. And the Superman in this would be older than the version of Superman you saw in the first movie to kind of establish that these movies don't necessarily have to take place in chronological order. These are just whatever is the most interesting film at the time. We're going to show you that, and they don't necessarily have to impact the sequel. So the next Superman film can still be set before this Justice League, or it can be set after, whatever the filmmaker wants. There's not that strict continuity here.
I dig it.
Yeah, no, I like there's just an immediate perfection to the Justice League already has recognizability in a way that the MCU never really did. So yeah, just fucking start with the Justice League. It's just such a good move. I like the take on Batman to an extent. You guys fucking love the Batman movie, and I'm still trying to muster up the energy to bother watching it a second time to see if I actually do like it or not. So I'm not really attached to whether or not those movies stick around. I am kind of here for the idea that they get canceled just so I can, like, sustain myself upon your tears for like a good
Evil,
couple
evil
weeks.
boy.
Like, tell me you would not just be, like, complaining everywhere.
Oh, I'd be insufferable.
Oh, I'd kill myself. Are you kidding?
Yeah, no, I'd just be like, yes, Steve. Cry some more.
Steve would kill himself, I'd kill you.
I would kill myself and I would name Ian in my suicide note.
Oh, man. I'm personally just...
You know, for the rest of your life, you did that.
Yeah, well, hey.
You did this.
At least I won't have to watch another fucking 3-hour Batman movie where they can't figure out the riddle of a rat with wings. So, you know, this is all wins for me. Anyway, so, yeah, no, for sure. I like the idea, though, of just the super competent Batman, because that's the... Man, it's just... I'm sick of it. I'm sick of, oh, well, he's just starting out. He's just learning. Well, he's just been learning since fucking 1989. Give me Adam West level Batman again, where he's just got his shit together, dude.
And I think we need to see that on screen. I think visually, people would be so here for that, because people went nuts for, like, John Wick and shit. Like, people just love seeing a character they like do what they do and do it really, really well. And I feel like putting him in a Justice League setting and just not trying to justify, like, why is he the guy with no powers here? It's just accepting, no, he's the most dangerous man alive. Like, that is just, like, why he's here and why every other member of the Justice League is wary of him. Because this Batman from Jump Street, like, you don't see him in any other movies, but he'll become, like, mythic. And people will be desperate to have a solo movie with this Batman, but they never will. Because we'll construct him in a way where if he was in Gotham and just doing solo Batman stuff, it would be really boring because he'd sweep. This is a Batman designed for Justice League first, Gotham second.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's that good shit. Like, it's so funny because I love, you know, my hyper-competent Batman, but then I do get kind of annoyed just as, like, a Batman Villains fan when people can't seem to balance that with his rogues and they just make his rogues look, like, pathetic. And I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. That's what makes him scary, is you just do both. Like, you have hyper-competent Batman and then you have his villains that start running circles around his ass. And that's always great. And people are like, oh, come on, I don't buy it. But I'm like, nah, man. I've seen the Riddler show up in both Flash and Green Arrow's books and fuck shit up, and it is so satisfying. I cannot tell you how cool that feeling is with Batman villains specifically. Like, anyone else, yeah, sure, Lex could come into a Batman book and be a problem, but it's not anywhere near as impressive as the fucking Riddler running circles around the Flash. I'm sorry. So no, I could see it. I just do it, but then make the solo Batman film and just make the cool ass, hyper competent Batman that's just having to deal with, you know, people that are just as competent as him, but they're also evil, and that's
Also valid. Valid.
I'm the one with the Alfie stance on this one. No, go harder. Oh.
I think that you're right, that is the difference between is I'm making these hoping that the Robert Pattinson Batman is going to still exist to, like, scratch that itch. You're making these with just, like, no, just give me the one single Batman. And that makes sense.
Yeah, the one true Batman. Our god, our Bat God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Alright, so my second one is a bit more vague. Because, again, I do want to adapt the comics, but you know, some of these characters don't have really great arcs, so I'd probably jump around, kind of mix some stories together, but still do closer adaptations than I feel like what we get on film most of the time. So I kind of want to do a crossover combination of the Greg Rucka Eyes of the Gorgon Wonder Woman story and kind of seed it or like parse it out, intercut it, I guess, with the really famous, is it called A Day in the Life or an Interview? The Lois Lane interviewing Wonder Woman for a day story. I really like both of those. Those are really cool, and I think just, you could probably fit it with any Wonder Woman adventure, just have Lois Lane kind of tagging along the way as like a surprising but yet interesting team up, because you wouldn't necessarily expect the first time you see Lois Lane in this universe for her to be in a Wonder Woman movie, but I think that would be just fundamentally interesting. So yeah, I'd have the day in the life and still get like the important like non-superhero shit from that book in there, but also splice it in with the Eyes of the Gorgon story for Wonder Woman. I think that'd be a really cool way to do a Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah, I'm down for that a lot. The Lois Lane Wonder Woman idea was something I thought about as well, but cooled off on. Because I didn't want to make it seem that Wonder Woman supporting cast. You know what? That's a bullshit argument. I was going to lie to you there. I did it because I don't want to just be the Superman guy and include Superman characters in all of these. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll hold off on Lois Lane because they'll probably say something.
Oh my god, I love it.
But that's a really good. That's a really good idea, I'd love that.
I love that I search, because I can't remember the name off the top of my head, Lois Lane and Wonder Woman story, and all I get is Lois Lane Wonder Woman? Wonder Woman had to give Lois Lane up, or had to give Superman up for Lois Lane. Are Wonder Woman and Lois Lane interchangeable? I was like, what the fuck?
That's so funny.
Wow, that's incredible.
The one from Lois Lane and Wonder Woman interchangeable is from Wired, of all places, which is weird.
Jesus.
Though in all fairness, it's at least 2012, back when they were like still new.
Yeah, was that back when Wonder Woman and Superman were dating?
Yeah, it would have been.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I can't find the fucking the interview one. I like that. I think it's called A Day in the Life, but I can't fucking remember. Again, I'm tired. I'm sorry. I probably should have written some of this shit down. I'm like hazily trying to remember all of the ideas I had during the week.
That's good. Don't worry. Ian is in the pre-2050 DC Universe planning boardroom where they sleepily come in and be like, I think we said we'd make a Flash movie. I don't remember.
What else do you adapt with Flash besides Flashpoint? It's weird though, this character's been around for 70 years, but he only has the one story.
Oh, fuck it.
Yeah, I love that Flash story where he dies and it's all over and we never make another Flash comic. It's my favorite Flash story.
All right, Steve, what's your movie 2?
All right. So my movie 2, so I'm going to surprise you a little bit in that I don't really want a Justice League movie, except at least not in the way that we've been talking about it, because Justice League as an idea is a lot of brand recognition just kind of thrown at the wall. But historically, I just don't think Justice League is a very good book series to pull from. Like, every time anyone ever says, like, what's the greatest Justice League stories ever told, they're like, Tower of Babel, Morrison, Tower of Babel, Morrison. Like, no one actually has any sort of, like, vested interest in the history of Justice League comics because they mostly suck ass compared to other stories where the Justice League appear or are, like, differential versions of the Justice League. So I wouldn't do Justice League. I would do Justice League International, number 2. So you start with the big sort of, like, meta Superman movie that asks, what exactly about Superman have you fallen in love with? And then you do like a complete heel turn and you make a comedy and you make the movie where it's Booster Gold and Martian Manhunter and Fire and Ice and Blue Beetle and Batman and Guy Gardner and they're the Justice League, and they're the Justice League on Earth, and they could not care less about their job, and they're all just really funny, wacky people, and you have them kind of essentially doing a sort of Suicide Squad style story where they're kind of roped into a situation because no one thinks they're going to competently survive it, and then they end up competently surviving it. You could still do the kind of like hyper competent Batman in that scenario. Like Batman in that movie could kind of be the sort of blood sport Rick Flag kind of role where he's just a straight man. You could still do that like big sort of Batman one punch knocks out Guy Gardner scene for just the lulls. But more specifically, I think the reason this would work is that you're kind of allowing the universe to feel like it's already full and establishing a bunch of characters that give you pockets into different aspects of the universe, because Booster Gold kind of taps you into any period in time in the DC universe and gives you a lot of extra information that you could use to do other things with. Blue Beetle is already a legacy character. Fire and Ice have not the best like story history, but have like a really complicated 90s comic history that could be worth getting into. Martian Manhunter is a really easy way to kind of bridge between the C-list and the A-list Justice Leaguers. And then Guy Gardner sort of works the same way, where you establish the Green Lantern Corps, you have a famous Green Lantern there, but it's just the Green Lantern that everybody hates. And I think in that dynamic, you'd get a chance to do a superhero movie that appeals to that sort of like jokey Marvel tone, except instead of trying to like turn serious moments into jokes, the whole movie is just a comedy. The whole thing is just like goofy people in costumes being kind of morons, and Batman just being in the center of it, being like, why the fuck did I get into this situation? I think that would be a lot of fun. And Justice League International, outside of the two stories everyone likes in Justice League, is the only run in DC history that's about the Justice League that anyone thinks is any good. Like, Justice League International is almost always unanimously considered one of the greatest runs DC ever produced. And it's like the only time there's been a run on Justice League that's was a classic and has remained a classic. So I think putting that on screen would scratch a lot of itches for a lot of people. And I think it sort of speaks to the sort of James Gunn world building sensibility, and it bridges the same side of audience that the Suicide Squad did. And it also gives you an avenue to kind of show that this is a universe where you can tell a lot of stories with a lot of different tones. Because any one of these characters could have some like darker pathos you could explore later. But for now, they're just goofy people in costumes being goofy, and I kind of want to see that.
I think that, of all the ones that have been mentioned so far, is the one that's most likely to happen. Like, I think that is the one that, like, James Gunn, I think, took the job to make. Like, I would not be shocked if that exact movie gets made.
If there's any DC story property that James Gunn is kind of perfectly equipped to adapt, it's Justice League International.
Yeah, I could really see that. It's never been a franchise or side of DC I've really been that impressed or interested in, but I definitely think to just set yourself apart from Jump, it's a really good choice. And I think cinematically, with the right actors, I think you can make me like those characters more than I did on the page. Like, I think Guy Gardner in a movie could be a lot funnier and, like, more interesting than he is on the page.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think there's a lot of, like, blank slateness to all of the characters on that team, which is why the book is funny and why it's basically a sitcom, is that it's just kind of personality-less, like, filler people who all kind of fall into their sitcom roles, and that makes it funny. But like, you inject an actor's charisma into that, and it makes the whole thing just kind of work. Like, you get fucking Glenn Powell to play Booster Gold, and it'd be the greatest movie of all time, I swear to God.
No, I dig it. For me, for number 3, this would be the last movie of the first year. We're still in the same phase, but I would only really want them to put out 3 movies a year, because I think how Marvel putting them out where they're like at 4 plus all the Disney Plus shows is fucking suicidal and idiotic. But I think 3 movies a year is a sustainable and good pace, where if you spread them out far enough, people don't really get sick of a DC film, and as long as you keep them as different genres, I think you could keep these going indefinitely, and people wouldn't get kind of like superhero fatigued out of them because none of them would really be the same thing. But I don't think you should push it past that. But for the third film, it's going to be called The Sensational Wonder Woman, and it's going to be science fantasy. So this is going to be in the same vein as your Avatars in terms of like scope and tone. It's going to be kind of like an adventure film, but less so on Wonder Woman with the like warrior imagery, and more so leaning on the Earth One Wonder Woman, where it's more kind of like the Amazons are just highly advanced, and they've still got warrior customs and like that kind of reverence for like the old ways and the gods, but they're not a society that's like they're riding kangaroos and they've got like hoverboards. Like they are more advanced than the rest of the world. They're not like the behind the times. And drawing on this, I kind of had the thing is Ian's got a lot more history with Wonder Woman than I do in terms of like specific stories to pull from. So I don't have like an exact pitch for this. I just think I'd like Von Gunther to be the villain, and I don't want this to be an origin movie either, because I think the Wonder Woman movie is still pretty fresh in people's minds, and I think we don't want to just have Wonder Woman's only stories be like retellings. I think you can get a lot of like implication about what this version of the origin is from people talking about it, but this isn't an origin movie, and this would basically be Wonder Woman's version of Superman Smashes the Klan, where it's very much set in the modern day, and it's not old World War II Von Gunther. It's Von Gunther is a neo-Nazi with Dr. Psycho as kind of like this influencer, social media
I'm sold.
kind of guru. Yeah, right. And Von Gunther is basically like his e-girl version of that, where she's got like all the Instagram model thing of getting these people into how people used to be, the good old days of they're taking away your masculinity. Wonder Woman wants to reduce you to an incel, like feel like you need to regain your pride as a man, and that's what women really like. They both be attacking on the same front at the same sides, and it would be Wonder Woman basically fighting that. So it would be the most kind of like topical of the films, and they will normally be at the day. But I think one that Wonder Woman is even better suited to tell this story than Superman is. And I think it would be a really good, strong stance from day one about her character. And while I'm also saying it should deal with these things, I don't want it to be tonally so far that you can't take a little girl or a kid to watch it. Like, I think it should still be like, they're the bad guys are Nazis, but in the same way as like Indiana Jones, right? Where you can still comfortably show this to a child and let them have these lessons and show why this needs to be fight and why loving yourself and accepting yourself is good. Without the need of like she's not going to be chopping people's heads off or anything like this. Would be like a fun family movie to go watch in comparison to say the Superman movie, which will get a little raunchier, or the Justice League movie, which deals with more like sort of Batman psychology and stuff. Like the Wonder Woman movie for this first film would be kind of more in the vein of like a Disney movie but in live action. Like this would be like a spectacle to take the family to go and watch.
Yeah, no, I like a lot of those ideas. The modernizing Dr. Psycho as the social media influencer, I think, is really good. Particularly because at that point you arguably don't even need the mind control anymore. Which is kind of funny, but no, it's kind of cool. I guess I'm surprised that so much of your your universe so far, Alfie, is so like grounded in a number of ways. There's not like a lot of there's a surprising lack of epic from you.
Well, that's near the end, but we'll get there. With one thing specifically, but again, I don't want to do this as necessarily because I feel like the epic superhero movie is where we've kind of like Marvel's kind of fucked that for me, and Snyder kind of fucked that for me as well, right? Is like all those movies were so important, TM. All these movies are universe shaking, and we need to save the whole world. They're always going to change, and I don't think that necessarily, like, you can have great films that are about that, but like I don't want these things to be seen as typical. I don't want all the third acts to be like save the world, right? I want all of these to be films first and foremost that involve these superhero characters and just show the versatility of them. So like I want to do the big epic huge things, right? But like everyone is sick of that. And I feel like starting out with that would be a mistake. So I feel you need to show, hey, this is why DC rocks and is better than Marvel, because you can do shit like this, you know? Like I think that's a smarter way to go about it.
Okay. Does that mean it's me again?
Yeah, if you got your card one, go for it.
Alright. So surprise. Shock and awe is about to occur in this call. I would do a Green Lantern story that adapts.
What?
That adapts.
Ian, what do you know about Green Lantern?
Not much. I just kind of like the vibe, you know? I saw some out of context panels on Twitter and I decided I'm the biggest fan.
Okay, that tracks. Continue.
Yeah, okay, because I'm just gonna say it. So my initial was like, maybe I should, back off a little bit. Like the Red Lanterns are really popular and like they were really cool in the animated series. People like those. You could probably do something that like adapts some of their introduction comic as well as maybe when they had their own book for a while. You could probably cherry pick here and there. And yes, you could still probably do all that, but I'm not. Fucking Green Lantern Agent Orange, first Green Lantern movie is just fucking dealing with, we've been dealing with this fucker on this planet that we made a deal with eons ago, and we decided fuck that deal. So we're going in, we're cleaning up house, and we're just gonna fucking deal with Larfleeze. And you know what? Just let Larfleeze be the fucking villain for the movie, because I was looking up some fucking Larfleeze art again, and I'd kind of forgotten when he was like big, not like in popularity wise or anything, but like it got lost almost immediately. Like by the time you get to like Blackest Night and stuff, he's already like regular human sized. But Larfleeze's introduction, dude was like at least 8 to 9 foot tall, and that was just cool. like not in a way where he was like looked like super strong and muscular. Like he was still lanky as fuck, but he was just like big and kind of scary, and I like that. It's just cool. So I kind of want to get that and get like that creepy vibe, but then like start up the comedy aspect with Larfleeze and just have him be this fucking. I don't think we've gotten a villain like that in comic book films, since. I mean, maybe arguably Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor, but not quite that far. Like, really just keeping that ping-ponging of the character where he can be absolutely uproariously funny or, like, legitimately creepy and terrifying at just the drop of a hat. I fucking love that shit about him, and I just want to get that on film. So something that it's, like, either adapting Agent Orange kind of directly, that's a pretty short book, so you'd probably have to pull from something else, and maybe going so far as to dealing with, was it? I think it was post Blackest Night, if I remember correctly, where Larfleeze started attacking the Blue Lanterns from across space, which was cool. So something like that maybe pulls from both of those stories and kind of integrates them together, I think would be really cool.
I'm down for who would your Green Lantern be? Like how many Green Lanterns would be involved in it? Who would be your guy or girl?
Oh man.
And would it be Guy?
It would definitely not be Guy.
Would your Guy?
I mean, like, my go-to is always to do Kyle, right? Because I just like Kyle. But again, I'm arguing for just, the comics worked for a reason. Just trust the comics. And everyone likes to, rag on Hal Jordan. I think more because it's popular to rag on Hal Jordan than anything else. It's one of those internet like groupthink things where they all seem to make the exact same 3 points, and I'm kind of like, it's almost like you just read this opinion from someone else and are regurgitating it for me. So the only big problem is Hal Jordan's just not a very popular character, and there's been a big desire for like Jon Stewart to be on film because of the popularity from Justice League show. And I'd like that fine, provided he actually has a character, would be great. So yeah, I'm comfortable like being a little looser with it, but just again, just the idea of like fucking lore dump on my ass. I don't care anymore. At this point, there was that argument years ago. It was like, well, DC is actually making these films for the fans, not just to be for general audiences. And it was obviously like, fucking covering their asses and about why they made a bad movie. But you know what? At this point, you are basically only making the movie for the fans because no one else is fucking watching these things. So fuck it. I don't need it explained. Yeah, there's a bunch of different colored cores. This is the first time we're meeting the orange one. And also, hey look, now he's attacking the planet of the blue ones. This isn't good. We need to do something about that. Fuck it. You can put Jon Stewart in the middle of that mess and let him work it out. Sounds pretty hype. Just give him an actual character as opposed to, I'm the one that asks questions, or whatever the fuck his deal is, because they don't actually have any idea what to do with him because they don't want to. They're all a bunch of pussies and don't want to go back to original Jon Stewart, who was actually cool. But what do I know about that? I just read some Green Lantern posts on Twitter and thought the vibe was pretty cool. That's all I know.
Can't argue with that.
Absolutely. Marco. I'd be down for villain Laughley's though. I think you can make him really creepy. I think people would also love him. Like, the moment he gets exposed to general audiences, he's always super popular. So I feel like DC doesn't understand how big of a character they've got on their hands if they get him right.
I mean, it's just...
Also just having, like, constructs and stuff in space in multiple colors with modern technology. Like, that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, especially with the way, like, Larfleeze's power works, because, the problem with, okay, we're creating a bunch of different lantern cores, right, is, okay, so this one's got a green sword and this one's got a red sword. It's kind of the problem you run into. Whereas with Larfleeze, and I love this about the original Agent Orange comic, is the artist went so hard where he's got his own core of just people that he killed and turned into constructs. So he can still do all the other, I'll make a boat or whatever, but he doesn't. He just manifests the stolen souls of his enemies. And the fact that the original artist for Agent Orange, anytime he was showing members of Larfleeze's core, just not a single one of them was like a bipedal humanoid in any way, shape, or form. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck yeah. Let's go. Just fucking weird aliens that are all flying around on screen, and you got the Green Lanterns trying to deal with them, and then just the fucking scene from Agent Orange that sticks with me to this day is they get fucking ambushed. They show up on his planet and they're like, alright, his sanctum must be somewhere around here, we'll find it. And then just all of a sudden, one of them just gets grabbed by this translucent orange hand, and it just starts pulling on him, and then you just see him get ate. And the Green Lantern's just freaking the fuck out because they don't know what's happening. It's oh god, no! Eats him. Oh my god, it got Jenny, it got them. And then all of a sudden, they show back up as a fucking construct and start fighting against everyone. Holy shit. It's so cool. Just legit fucking horror movie level villain, then all of a sudden he becomes hilarious and unhinged. The internet is ready for Larfleeze on the main stage. I promise you this. You know who I'd cast to play Larfleeze? Obviously do probably your mocap thing and stuff, but I'd get the guy who played the Master for Jodie's era. He's just got the right level of fucking batshit insane energy for the character.
I don't know why, but for a second my mind was possessed. I thought you were about to say Nicolas Cage.
I mean, that too. I'm okay with that, but Nicolas Cage remains my go-to for if we ever redo Norman Osborn on film.
Fair.
Why are you cooking up, Steve?
All right. So this next one's gonna sound really fun, but I have a plan. Don't worry, I have a plan, and I think it's gonna be kind of hype. All right,
We'll let him cook.
So last year, there was a horror movie that came out called X, and it was like this Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, like 90s, 90-minute horror movie, where everyone kind of drove down to an old barn and then got murdered. And it was a really, really great horror movie. And then, like 2 months later, a movie came out called Pearl, which was a prequel to X, and it was another 90-minute horror movie that was shot concurrently with X, and they were filmed together, edited together, and then the other one was surprise released as a prequel that kind of stood on its own. So it's very much like a two-parter, but you didn't know that going into it, which was part of the appeal to it. So I kind of want to do that, where I have one movie where it's just kind of like, this is fine, this is funny, this is whatever, it's in the genre, and then like 2 months later, you get a companion movie that's completely different, that completely recontextualizes everything you just saw and becomes like this bigger epic in retrospect because they're two working to each other. And the way I would do that is I would adapt Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen and then 2 months later release the Forever People.
Yes.
I would do Jack Kirby, but the reason I decided to go this direction is I got Justice League International as the second movie. So you already got the comedy piece. You got Superman as your big mainstay, where the first movie's kind of introducing all of his side characters. So your follow-up to those two is a Jimmy Olsen movie, which is a comedy, which would more than Jack Kirby would actually be the Matt Fraction stuff, where it is more just kind of ridiculous and leaning into the sort of Silver Age comedy with a modern sensibility and kind of going down that route where like it's very tongue-in-cheek and very satirical. But the thrust of it would be the Jack Kirby Fourth World stuff, where it's just Jimmy Olsen going around interacting with cosmic beings on a scale he just doesn't understand. It'd be like that episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Zippo, where like everyone's fighting like this big hell demon where everyone might die, and Xander's just hanging around and doing his thing, which is very mundane, and the backdrop is like this big weird epic war that you never actually get to see. So you do that with Jimmy, and then like 2 months later, after you watch this comedy of this goofball shenanigans of Jimmy Olsen howling around in the cosmic DC universe, you release the Forever People. And it's the story that was taking place concurrently with Jimmy Olsen, where it's the Forever People and the war on Darkseid, and you get the context and the history behind New Genesis and Apocalypse, and you learn how Scott-Free escaped to Earth, and you basically create this entire picture of what the Fourth World is inside of the context of Jimmy Olsen just hanging out with the Forever People. I think that would be funny as shit.
Yeah, I love that. That's a fantastic idea. I love the idea of stealth releasing a movie like that right after another one as a surprise. That'd be so crazy if that happened.
And the cool thing is, like, with those kinds of releases, you're basically two very similar movies back to back. So you got like a part one and a part two, or like a main movie and a prequel, like in the case with Pearl and X. But the way you'd do this is that you'd have both movies, and the lead off would be like the sort of boring, dull, kind of generic all audiences one. And then the payoff stealth release would be the big epic you would expect to get the blockbuster funding.
Yeah, I think that's great. You'd have to really try and avoid. Go ahead, Eddie.
I'm not a fan of Forever People. I was talking with Alfie about this a while ago. I've tried on multiple occasions to read Jack Kirby's Fourth World, and I fucking can't get past a lot of it. I think Jack Kirby's got a lot of great ideas, and I just don't really care how he executes them. So I'm not really necessarily here for it. So, but it's interesting to I like the idea from a marketing standpoint, certainly.
The thing with my way of doing the fourth world is I agree with you because I love Jack Kirby's writing. So in line with the Jimmy Olsen stuff being more based on the Matt Fraction run, the Forever People side of it would be more based on the miniseries that J.M. DeMatteis did in like the 80s or 90s. And so the idea would be the cool epic war for Apocalypse and Darkseid has already happened. And the Jimmy Olsen stuff of it is kind of coming out on the other side of it as it's growing again. And then the Forever People side is more of that intimate character drama of the Forever People being born on Earth, knowing that the war is over and trying to fight the darkness that comes from being people that have to fight against Darkseid for their entire existence. And so kind of showing the origin of the idea that Jack Kirby was trying to do, but from that more sort of like gritty 80s style that DeMatteis was able to pull off. Because I think the thing about the fourth world that's so cool is that Jack Kirby has great ideas, and he had a really great model for like creating those concepts. Because you look at like as a structure, Jimmy Olsen, Forever People, Mr. Miracle, and New Gods, and it's kind of a perfect little system for developing this big epic narrative. If you can just copy that and change the words up to be a more sort of competent individual one and done stories, I think it would be so fucking cool.
Fair enough.
It would need the right director for sure, but I think the concept's killer. I love that.
Oh yeah, 100%. You would need someone who like you could trust to carry two separate tones at the same time.
For my next one, this would be the second year now, and this is where things start to get a little bit more experimental. And I'll try to rush these through as well, so we're not here all fucking day. But the first idea would be called The Brave and the Bold, and it would be Flash and Green Lantern film as a buddy cop movie, where it would be. I kind of want to imagine this. I don't know if he'd actually direct it, but just to give you the vibe of what I'd want, it would be like a Jordan Peele movie, where like it's a superhero buddy cop movie about two cops that are also aware about the fact that it's a superhero buddy cop movie about two cops in the 2020s and like how bad optics that is, and kind of dealing with how no one likes Barry in Hell anymore, and like why don't we like me, and kind of like both dealing at a fact where, for context, Barry would have Kid Flash as Wally, and Hal would already be around with other lanterns, and both of them kind of get the feeling that everyone's kind of just waiting for these guys to die so that someone else can take over, and then both be like, no, we don't want to die, we're cool, come on, we cool, and kind of doing 21 Jump Street, but as like superheroes, as Barry and Hal desperately try and prove that they're the coolest motherfuckers around, but the end of it would be kind of their ego going away and realizing that the people who are around them, who love them, already think they're the coolest people around. Barry doesn't need the world to love him, because Wally loves him more than anything, and Wally thinks he's the coolest dude ever. Hal doesn't need to prove that he's the bestest and ultimate Green Lantern, so no one can take his fucking job. Everyone else already thinks he is, and respects him as a dude, and respects him for his bravery and his will, and not for the showboating. And it would kind of be a dealing with ego, the idea of legacy versus the original characters and them trying to fight it, and just a really funny movie with those dynamics where it's Wally and Jon Stewart, but I really like the dynamic they had in the Justice League cartoon where John and Wally kind of like it's the tough kind of straight man with just a complete goofball. It'd be more balanced with that because Hal's also a fucking dumbass. And Barry, I wouldn't want to be comical like Wally. He'd just kind of be like a nerd. But like I feel like those two have a really untapped amount of potential,
And after the baggage of like whatever this Flash movie is going to turn out to be, and
God.
the Green Lantern movie having its own rep, I don't think just doing Green Lantern or just doing Flash on their own would necessarily endear people to these people. But I think doing both a Green Lantern movie and a Flash movie in one as a buddy cop, I think would be really, really cool and something different that we haven't seen with superhero characters. And everyone, like, even if they're terrible, most people like at least one buddy cop movie, and you can do some really fun character building stuff in that. And I think putting that in a superhero setting where they're both actually like really powerful superheroes dealing with their weird rogues gallery could be a lot of fun.
Who'd you have as a villain?
I don't know. I think it would just be that fucking dumbass energies. Hal and Barry would be the villains of their own story. I wouldn't have a big bad. You wouldn't have your Sinestro. You wouldn't have your Reverse Flash. You'd have all the like lower tier guys.
Oh, so like fucking Tattooed Man and like Tar Pit and shit.
Because it would be dealing about how they're trying to fight the fact that they think they're lame, right? So you wouldn't give them the cool ones. You'd give them all the lame ones and be like, oh yeah, Professor Zoom fights Wally now. He's like, he fights the kid? Yeah, he fights the kid. It's like, why doesn't he fight you, Barry? I don't know. Why doesn't he fight me? He used to be all about my history. He hasn't changed. You know, I went outside today and my shoes weren't untied. You know, it hasn't happened in 5 years, Mal. Like, he always unties my shoes. What changed? Why aren't I cool anymore? I think you could get a lot of good ones. So that would be the first, like, really, truly, like, silly one of the bunches. That would just be... It could be emotional stuff, but the main goal for that would be to be a comedy.
All right. Fair enough. Okay, so then it's me again. Okay, I'm gonna throw you a bone here, Alfie. I want to do a Superman movie now. Now is the time.
Yeah.
And the adaptation I'm gonna do might not be one you like, but I do like things about this story. Mainly just for the design. I want to do an adaptation of Superman Brainiac. I fucking like that movie. The adaptation we got actually wasn't terrible. Also had props for Matt Boomer as Superman. Like, we can't get Henry Cavill, so we'll get someone that looks like Henry Cavill. So yeah, I like Superman Brainiac. Brainiac's just got such a fucking cool, weird design in that one, like with all the black tubes, and they did like the green Brainiac. We got that in live action basically with the Krypton show. And it looked like amazing there. So if you give it like better than a Sci-Fi Channel show budget, I think it could look even fucking better on film. And just, I've wanted a Superman versus Brainiac on film thing for a while because it would just enable you to let Superman just go all the way out because, you know, you got your like army of drones kind of thing with Brainiac. So you just would be able to show some really freaking awesome Superman on film action and just have it be like next level epic shit. And I think that'd be cool as fuck. I'd just be hyped to see that on film. And I think Brainiac's just a really cool villain to feature. That, you know, for better or worse, a lot of the Marvel movies have very forgettable at best villains. Like they've got some good ones, but you know, who's your favorite MCU villain that isn't Thanos or Killmonger? Steve was gonna say Ultron. Yep. You know, I know you too well. It's not that they don't
timing though.
Yeah, it's not that they don't hit like or don't serve their function, but they just are all kind of samey. And Brainiac just gives you a chance to do something so unique and fucking. Again, I'm noticing the trend here. I really want to do creepy fucking villains on film. I want to scare children.
Brainiac's
I like
definitely
that, yeah.
though. What have you got, Steve?
All right, so this is going to be a weird because I think this is sort of the bookend to what I'm planning, and so it sort of feels like a tonal whiplash, but it's kind of thematically in line with everything. So for context, we've got the big sort of meta Superman movie asking the questions of like why we decided this wasn't cool anymore. We got the Justice League comedy that kind of pivots on the new direction that Superman movie ends with, which is we turned our back on Superman, but Superman can prove himself to us again just because Superman's fucking cool and kids love him. And so you make a movie that's all about that charm. Then you get the sort of two films back to back, which is in the same tone with Jimmy Olsen, and then The Forever People, which is a similar tone, but now it's kind of got that big sort of cosmic scale thing happening, where you realize that this isn't just the fun comedy side of it, but there are sort of like deeper, weird cosmological questions and concepts being raised inside of this universe. So then I would make Strange Adventures the movie and cap it off there, because I think what you could do with that, and that book is just so fucking brilliant as both just a good murder mystery story, but also as this big sort of meta story about the relationship between creators and the characters they create. The thing about Strange Adventures as a book that's really is when Tom King was talking about it, he said that the history of comics sort of has this weird split between the Golden Age and the Silver Age that doesn't get talked about a lot, which is a lot of the original cool, interesting superheroes of the Golden Age were all of these like really specific different guys created by Jewish authors who had that as part of their character. And then when the Silver Age rolled around, they all became like these interchangeable white guys who were a lot more built into existing structures and authorities, and they lost that sort of weird Jewish heritage that a lot of them had previously. So like railway worker union Alan Scott becomes space cop Hal Jordan. And Adam Strange is kind of like the perfect epitome of that, because he's based in all of those white savior stories of a unimpressive white guy in his own society decides to go to some other society and thinks he's hot shit, he's going to save everybody. And so the whole book is problematizing that. And so you make that into a movie where it's the exact same premise as that book, and the Justice League and everything is already in there as more of the background characters. And it's, you take that funny tone you've established of like all of these fun and games with the superheroes, and that's Adam Strange. And then you uncover the underbelly of that whole thing, which is this person thought he was doing something because, out of love and out of care for his family, but he made the wrong choice every step of the way. And at the end of the day, it's just this insecurity and this pride that he's holding on to, and he gets pulled down by the truth. And you bring up a different kind of hero who takes him down, which is Mr. Terrific. And splitting off the universe in that way, where it's like there's a lot of fun and charm to these concepts, but a lot of the silliness spawns from taking away a lot of the bite that made these characters interesting in the first place, and like again making Adam Strange the fall guy for that, and then ushering in a different era that starts off with Mr. Terrific, I think would be a really cool break between Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Yeah, I think that definitely is the one that like Warner Brothers executives are gonna like try to fight you every step of the way. You gave us a Superman movie, and then the rest of these fucks, we spent this much money. I don't even know who they are. What do you mean, Adam Strange? Who the fuck? Like they'd lose their mind. So it's worth it just for that. But
well, the best part about that is like in literally of Strange Adventures, a dude literally.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. So I would love to see it just entirely on those merits. But I think setting it up with what you expect with the James Gunn kind of humor films, and then using Strange Adventures to completely subvert that at the end once people get comfortable, is a really, really cool idea of showing that this isn't going to be like the MCU. This isn't going to be the same thing. you're never going to get comfortable with what these films are, because they're always going to be changing. That's what DC does. I think that's because when you start listed a bunch of comedies, Steve, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't want just those. But once you got to the Strange Adventures thing, I kind of saw what you were doing, so I think that's a cool idea. But it's gonna be one where like the marketing team is gonna have to go fucking crazy on this one.
And there's a lot of like comedy like baked into Strange Adventures 2 that I think could kind of play off of the stuff we set up. Because
For
Batman's kind of a straight guy who's funny in Justice League International in the comic and in the movie. And then in Strange Adventures, he's got that great scene where like him and Mr. Terrific are interrogating that piked guy, and Batman like gives him a veiled threat in piked, but it's like the worst language translation ever, and like he tries to sound all intimidating, but he's just basically speaking gibberish. And then the piked responds in piked, and Batman doesn't understand, so he looks at Mr. Terrific. Did you get all that? You could just keep translating that shit into film. I think that would be great. And then I think using the way that book ends in particular, where Adam Strange gets killed by Alana, and her and Mr. Terrific basically decide we're going to try and find a way to like raise this daughter on Earth and figure out what the heck to do. And that an entire city in the U.S. got blown up, and the Justice League had this whole sort of like political thriller investigation into itself because of what everything Adam Strange did. I think you could kind of set up a very different universe, and you could set up a darker and a more kind of jaded worldview of the Justice League in that universe, right as you kind of lean into more of the Forever People Darkseid stuff in the second act of it, because you kind of do what Marvel said they were going to do with Civil War and didn't really do, which is you introduce the worst possible threat right on the cusp of when all of the main characters have fallen out with each other. And unlike Marvel, instead of just magically bringing them back together in between movies, we would actually have to kind of deal with some of that fallout, because the Forever People would help set up all of these like different little factions within the Darkseid Apocalypse sort of area. So like you get some Mr. Miracle stuff on one end, you get Orion drama on the other end that would conflict with Superman. You'd get stuff with like Bug and the Foragers, and that would help lean into what the kind of plot that the Justice League International could deal with. And you basically take all of these goofy fun stories and you set them up to kind of get knocked down, because the goofy fun stories are kind of the root of the problem in the first place. And then you turn it around and say, can you keep that spirit and say something a little bit more serious and meaningful?
What are you feeling, Ian?
Steve's too smart for me. I don't understand the game plan here. It sounds interesting, right? Of do 3 comedy movies and then like set it up with this big subversion kind of thing, but I don't know. That's a lot of fucking setup and payoff. I guess my thing is
it would never happen.
Yeah, I know, and obviously this is all just theoretical. So create whatever fucking universe you want. It's just why create one that's so like, haha, gotcha. I guess I don't know. I'm getting I don't understand. You're too big brain for me. I just want to see the characters I like on screen and see them fight people and be cool. That's all I want. I don't really want like deep trying to get some kind of fucking social commentary in. Like at this point, I just don't trust Warner to like do it. So I just like, wouldn't it be cool if this character showed up in a movie? Wouldn't it be fun to just have that to go and experience on occasion? So that's kind of where I'm at mentally on this one. I'm sorry, Steve. I don't like your pitch. I reject it. I hope James Gunn does fucking anything but that.
You know what? Fair enough.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a bad friend, Steve, but I don't like it.
Ian, how many more do you have left?
I don't really have any left. Like, that's the thing. I'm not really building toward anything with the phase, because
you're just throwing out. Oh, this adaptation would be cool.
Well, because like for real, that's what I want though. I don't like. There's been like this apathy post Endgame, now that everyone feels like the MCU's finally done it, they've finally gotten to this point, and now they can't get the same level of hype again. And I don't necessarily like agree with that, just as like a fundamental way of telling stories that you have to continuously build. I think that makes really bad stories. So I kind of appreciate that they took a bit of a breather, or whatever you'd want to call it. But all that being said, I don't really want like a DC universe to build to some like dark side invasion level story. I'd rather that just happen in a movie, you know? I don't necessarily need like this multi-film building driving arc where everything's got to be interconnected. I don't really want that. So I just like would have the movies just be fucking coming out and being cool stories. You know, like a movie does.
I'm with you on that. I think I've got more left, but like epic stuff happens down the ride, but it's not like, oh, and this is setting up the big finale. It's just like, no, this movie is just the epic. In the same way that we do different genres, one of these is going to be the Star Wars, but then that's just the one-off. It's not going to get like a sequel or anything. This will be fun because I've got quite a couple left, and I do think some of these are banger ideas, so I don't get them out there first. I'll just give you quick name summary, and then you both can just say yay or nay, and I'll just move on.
Okay.
All right. So first one, Gotham City Sirens. This is going to be about Selena Kyle, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn. This is a crime drama. This isn't going to be humor focused. Imagine a Spike Lee documentary mixed with Atomic Blonde, mainly from Selena Kyle's perspective, where these three women will show you the history of crime in Gotham, from the mobsters and Falcone family with Selena to the scientifically empowered supervillains with Poison Ivy, and then finally the twisted turn when the old villains became much darker and psychological with Harley Quinn. And can these three women take control of crime in Gotham and usher in a new era, or are they going to be permanently defined by their race and they're subject to the different periods of misogyny over DC's publishing history, but through the lens of this is just how Gotham crime evolved?
Yeah, sure. Fuck it. I'm down. That sounds like the characters showing up and just doing some cool stuff.
I am 100% here for it, but it involves women's.
So now I'm not 100% here for it. Until they take off their tops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a tentative yes, it depends. No, I'm kidding. I like that. I like that idea.
All right. The next one. This is the one I couldn't think of a title. So this title is entirely here, but you could also call this Strange Adventures. You could also call it something else. I call it DC Presents Vertigo. And this is basically going to be DC Trick or Treat. This is a magical phase-based horror anthology film with the main character that carries us through this through line being Raven. And we're going to be following, there's going to be an Etrigan story. There's going to be a Zatanna story. There can be a Man-Bat story thrown in here. You can get Dr. Fate in here. You can even have a glimpse into something like Deceased. Nothing specific, but it would basically be you'd have one person, the framing of Raven trying to escape from Trigon by using her powers to go through different aspects of the world and even the multiverse. And every time we go there, we enter a new 20-minute horror movie segment that is its own film. It can even be different directors for each segment. But this would basically just, let's show how awesome and scary DC could be. Like, this would be R-rated. This would be a full-on horror film.
Why is it called Vertigo if you didn't mention a single Vertigo character?
Because it's a cool title. That's why I said I couldn't think of the title.
I mean, it's misleading.
DC Presents, I mean, probably is the way to go with it. It's just DC Presents whoever. But
DC
I like that.
House of Mystery would be probably a
That's a good
closer one.
That's a good one. I like that.
But yeah, no, it's just like, oh, DC Vertigo. So he's gonna do like Sandman and like fucking Perez or something? And it's like, or Prez? Like, no. Nothing like that. I refuse to read those
Nah.
books because I am Alfie Taylor.
Exactly right. I just wanted to get the title, but House of Mystery, easy change. This is where we have you.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a cool idea. I like fucking I like little vignettes. Those are always good.
Next one is gonna be an animated movie, but it's still in canon. It's not a separate world. It's just animated. And by animated, I don't mean fucking 3D models. I mean Studio Ghibli style. This is the power of Shazam, and it's basically just Billy Batson, the Marvel family, as a Ghibli film. Pretty simple, pretty standard. But it's in canon. It's just showing again the versatility of these films, where you can just do an animated movie and it doesn't have to be its separate thing. It's just this one's animated.
I like that idea.
I feel like Shazam is kind of perfect for that style. Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. I'd prefer if it was in 3D model animation, though. I think that would really sell a lot more for it and just be, a superior film in every single way.
I'll kill you.
Can we give it to James Cameron and make everyone blue?
Yes, absolutely. Let's keep improving Alfie's ideas.
Shazam's Avatar.
Let's keep going. What else could we do? Could we? All right, so it's in 3D. It's Avatar. Can it be a musical? What else does Alfie hate?
It's a sleeper way to create an X-Men shared universe.
Yes, it connects to the X-Men.
Billy Batson, you have the XG.
It's written by J.K. Rowling.
Yes, let's go.
Oh my god. I'm afraid. He's like the Punisher and his family's about to get shot. No. So good. Alright, next up. And the person who directs that I have specifically would be Megumi Ishitani, and she directed some of the best episodes of Dragon Ball Super, and she's directed a lot of animated movies in Japan, and I would kill to have a Shazam movie that looks like the Broly movie. I would literally die inside. It'd be so cool. But, come on, man, DC, just let me do this. The next one would be the one that, because James Gunn is running this thing, I'm assuming, he can have a movie, we can let him have one, and this would be Teen Titans, and we'd basically just do the show, but as a movie. That's all that would be.
I would love a Teen Titans movie. I wish we would stop doing the show.
Why?
Fuck
Because
you,
it's
we're doing
good.
the show.
It's not interesting. It's the problem with the show is that it took very, very minor aesthetics from the things that stand out in the Perez run, and then just kind of coasted on it, but it didn't do anything new or interesting. In fact, you kind of dumbed a lot of them down. If you're gonna make a Teen Titans movie, just do the actual good stories. Don't give me a half-assed
the ones from the
Terror,
show.
Give me Terror of Trigon.
Yeah, the good stories, the ones from the show. That's
No,
the good
no,
Teen
no.
Titans stories. That's the only. Steve, what are you talking about? There is only one thing of Teen Titans media of all time, and it is just the original Cartoon Network series that was fully original characters, except for Robin, right?
When I am president of Warner Brothers, I'm going to take every of that show and lock it in the vault and never happen again.
What if we let you make a Strange Adventures film? Will you let us
You know
have...
what?
Will you let the
That's all right.
children who watch Teen Titans Go be happy, Steve?
They can have Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans Go is fun.
It's so funny that
Why?
Steve is the only person I've ever met that doesn't like the cartoon. Actively
Oh no,
dislikes it.
Ian, you don't know. Teen Titans fans despise it.
That's
Steve's
so
not
funny.
alone.
It's
Teen
so
Titans
bad.
have
It's
fans?
so bad.
And they're like, Steve, pissing on the gospel. He's gonna fucking show up like Deathstroke and Dark Crisis, but only for the DC Teen Titans Go version.
I just anytime I think about Teen Titans, I just remember the little moments where fucking Kyle hung out with them for a couple issues, and I'm just oh okay, oh yeah, you remember when Beast Boy became the villain Changeling? I'm that sounds so bad.
So I'm assuming yay from Ian, nay from Steve.
no, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
I'll take it then. The next one would be the New Gods. And let's just stop beating around the bush. It's Star Wars. It's just DC Star Wars. We're just going to make a Star Wars movie, but call it DC. And the pitch here is it's Star Wars, but you know R2-D2 and C-3PO? How they open like A New Hope and we follow them for a little bit and then they just kind of stay in the background? That's Superman and Jimmy Olsen now. Superman and Jimmy Olsen are the R2-D2 and C-3PO of a New Gods movie where we know them before, so they can get thrown into this, but they are worthless in the grand scheme of things because Superman at this point in his career has no business dealing with Darkseid or any of these guys. So he just has to, for once, be a side character in someone else's story and kind of deal with that while we focus on the main conflict of Orion and his quest to try and prove he's not his father and the politics between the two worlds and get some really big actors. And again, treat it with the same tone as Star Wars where it's funny, it's emotional, it's heartfelt, it's big emotional ideas, but above all, it's a family drama. And these two outsiders are just outsiders that are there to be with us and watch this unfold.
Nay.
I
don't like it.
feel like that one's a little undercooked.
I was just
it's
no, Steve's being mean. Steve, he's your friend. You shouldn't make fun of his ideas for his own DC Universe adaptation. That's not a very friendly thing to do, Steve.
Yeah, you know, friends just veto the entire. No, I see what you're going for, like, tonally, but I don't hear the hook, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It would just, because I think it's just all it needs to be is just doing the New Gods on film, and you don't need much of a twist more than that, because I think they can just serve that purpose as the space opera of these things. And if you get someone who wants to do like a Rebel Moon or something, it's like, hey, you can play with these toys without having to worry about Disney biting you on your neck, because Disney kind of ripped off Jack Kirby to make these. You can just, I'm sorry, Disney, George Lucas. Here they are. Here is this toolbox that you can go with. And obviously there's more to the New Gods than just being, obviously, like akin to Star Wars. There's a whole thing with the Mateus, you got the Stalin stuff, you've got King, obviously, as well. You can draw from all of that, but just the base idea in my head of what I would want a New Gods movie to feel like is just a Star Wars movie is the thing that comes to mind. Is like, that's what would be most satisfying for me, is just that type of tone. Maybe closer to like Revenge of the Sith or Last Jedi in terms of tone, but still you can watch it and just get like the sense of a huge adventure, lots of practical effects, big weird names, huge different people from all over the galaxy, not need an explanation for it. But then if you want to, you can hyper dive into the lore and find these things.
Yeah, I'm here for that. I mean, I think the New Gods did like 1,000 movies out of it, so finding a spot to set that up is always good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And then the final one to round up this phase, and these were again 3 movies a year until this one would be the 4th movie this year, because to Shazam being an animated movie, I think you can squeeze at least one more into that as a kind of a phase capper off. And that would be another Justice League movie. And this one is the most easy concept in the world. I just don't want to lead off with it because I think that would be too much for people. But I think Justice League versus Legion of Doom writes itself. How novel of a concept is it to have supervillains team up and fight a team of superheroes? How have we had like 5 Avengers movie and no one has done that yet?
Well, in all fairness, they can't. They keep killing all the
because they
villains.
keep killing them off, right? It's so stupid. So just do this second Justice League movie. Lex Luthor's the main bad guy and he's ruling the Legion of Doom. Just pick the coolest villains, pick the coolest Justice League roster, and just basically make like a fight movie. Like, it doesn't really need to have much more to it than just, here's the superheroes you like fighting the supervillains you like, go crazy with it. Like basically something like a Kingsman or even like John Wick, where you like have a loose emotional thing to get there, but you're mainly here for the action choreography. This is where you get someone who just goes ham to show these superpowers beyond the light. You got the funny Flash movie with Hal Jordan. This is where you can see the Flash be a fucking badass. Like, you've got Superman being out of his element in the New Gods movie. This is where Superman goes ham. Like, you can have the villains go crazier than before. You can do what Ian said, where now that you've established this hyper-competent Batman, this is what our fucking Joker's like, and he's unstoppable. Just go big, big, big. Entirely just for the action, entirely just for the people on Twitter who can go, oh my god, the crowd reaction was crazy. You don't want to make any other Justice League like movie like this. You don't want to do any other movie like that since. But I think there is a really big desire just to see those toys smash each other for just one movie and then get out your system. Like, I think that does need to exist.
Yeah.
I also just am sick of superheroes team up and make a team because aliens fight and they just have a bunch of nameless goons. So yes, anything that isn't that.
Yep. No, I'm down. I like the Legion of Doom quite a bit, especially like when you get like DCEU, Legion of Doom, where it's just this like whole organization where it's not just like the 3 or 4 like villains, where it's just the idea of throwing a bunch of them at the wall and you just have it like in phases. Do fucking what's the name of the Bruce Tower of Death? do the tower where you have to fucking like go up ranks on the villains would be fucking hype.
Game of Death.
Game of Death. Yeah, Game of Death. My bad.
Imagine like just a scene I'm picturing to kind of sell this. Imagine. You know, in any action movie, like IP Man, right? Where like it's him versus like 20 guys, and he takes them all down. It's a really beautiful sequence. Imagine that's Superman, and all of those guys are different supervillains with names and unique costumes. And it's just, we don't have to establish them. They're just, those are what constitutes for goons in a movie of this scale.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be so, like, just crazy to see that, like, throwaway villains just entirely for separate action scenes where, like, Batman goes down a hallway and you do the fucking, like, world's finest movie where Batman and Superman take down just, like, 50 villains all on their own. Like, just keep throwing at it. It'd be so good. It'd be so good, man.
Yeah, I'm down.
Warehouse scene, but good.
Yeah, that's my whole slate, and then I just put this last little note here. If they really want to get out more movies than that, every phase they can have like an Elseworlds movie where that's where you just do like your Red Sun or like your Gotham by Gaslight or whatever the fuck, right? Just that's where you do if you want to just show the multiverse or whatever. Just have one of those things be like a Kingdom Come adaptation or something, just completely separate, one-off. Do that adaptation, do that book straight, which is kind of what Ian's like thing is like, I think that's too many films though, but like if you really wanted to do the Marvel thing where you're pumping these fuckers out, that's what would be my suggestion rather than trying to cram more solo movies in, is just do adaptations at that point as like the filler movies.
Yeah. I don't know. The comics are good for a reason, like the names are remembered for a reason. You can maybe fix a little thing here or there, but I don't know, I'm kind of sick of the superhero movie that's like feels the need to be super original and unpredictable, and so it'll like take elements from the story but then change it in such a fundamental way that it just like contradicts and doesn't feel like the story anymore. So now it feels like, well, now we could just never have this. Which was arguably better at, like, most of the time it's arguably better, if not demonstrably better. You know, but that's just me. That's just me with my haterade. So yeah, that's what I got going on. I'm trying to think about anything else that I just really wanted to fucking see. I want to do, okay, last one I got here is Flash, and I was like trying not to just say Morrison, but fuck it. Flash, I want to do the race across the universe where it ends with him fucking like running faster than someone with instant teleportation. It's the coolest fucking Flash thing of all time. It's for as much as Morrison is like known as the big heady author with all the like meta narrative and super complicated ideas that take 7-8 read-throughs. When Morrison just does power scaly shit, it's so fucking good. And the fact that like that comic came out in the 90s and people are still talking about the Flash is so fast he can race someone with instant teleportation across the entire universe and win with time to spare. It's so fucking good.
I know a lot of people were given the Joss Whedon Justice League movie shit because the post-credit scene is Superman and Flash going for a race because like, it's pointless. It didn't amount to anything. There was no seeds for the next movie. But no, fuck, give me more of that.
No,
Make that the whole movie. That's the best thing ever.
That's the best.
You're still
thing
talking
that
about it,
fucking
right? Like it's clearly left an impact.
Like, literally though, all I've ever wanted from a Justice League movie is like half of the scenes from the Joss Whedon version of Justice League. That's really all you really need. Where like Flash really quickly gets a bunch of people out and then looks over his shoulder and Superman is just carrying a house of people casually. That's what you need.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I can't deny that, like, despite just being a better film because it's actually a film, the Joss Whedon thing just has so many good scenes where I'm like, please, I would take this 1 billion times over what we ended up getting with the Snyder Cut. Like, I knew the Snyder Cut was going to be bad. I had no idea it was going to somehow be even worse than the Justice League.
I've become very stubborn in my opinion that the Joss Whedon Justice is not a great movie, but it's a pretty fun movie, and it's infinitely better than anything Zack Snyder's the characters.
Oof. Those are, Steve, those are fighting words for so many people, but I agree so much.
Fuck them! I have taste!
But Snyder's the blueprint. Look at how bad the movies look now that Snyder's no longer involved.
Oh man, it's a miserable thing to deal with those bastards, but that's okay. They're gone now.
They're gone. Yeah, they don't exist anymore. And all of them suddenly died one day. It was so weird.
They just disappeared. I have a death note, you see.
I was just about to say the death note. I love you, Steve.
You see, I am Kira.
He took a paper chip and ate it.
I love the meme where it's like Benoit Blanc is an anime. And it's like Benoit Blanc in Death Note, and he's like talking in the southern accent, and he's like, he took a potato chip, and he ate it, but he never ate those potato chips again.
Now, this man, this confoundler, this conundrum puzzler you call the Riddler, like, he's so good.
Batman Benoit Blanc team.
What do you make of this? Well, it doesn't make a damn lick of sense, but the man has his humor. The Joker you called him, fitting moniker. A fitting moniker.
I need it. I need it so bad.
Okay. Is that the end? Does everyone get that out of their system?
That one's gonna top that.
Okay.
For now, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, Steve, we need something to talk about next week. It can be a review, it can be a topic. It's up to you, Steve. You have the power.
Right. I got you.
No, wait, hold on. I'm putting caveat now. It has to be He-Man related. I'm kidding.
I was gonna say I was between a couple. Okay. I've been between a couple of things, but I think I've narrowed it mostly because it's pretty quick, so you won't have to spend more than like an hour reading it. But let's go ahead and talk about One Bad Day, The Riddler by Tom King and Mitch Gerads and Clayton Cowles.
All right.
I'm fascinated to hear what Ian thinks about that one.
Oh my god, I'm so excited.
It's probably sucks. Probably terrible.
I almost don't want to talk about it. I just want Ian to like talk about it
Tom King
and like
can't
argue
write
with
comics.
Steve.
Tom King should be banned from writing Batman. That's my opinion.
It's only 64 pages, so it really shouldn't take anyone.
Yeah,
I've
it's
read
the
it like
size of the Killing Joke.
yeah, it's exactly that. I've read it like 3 times now. So this will be fun. It'll be another revisit for me.
Steve has like a remarkable ability to reread things, or
He's
just
just-
re-experience things. Like
He was just talking about watching the Glass Onion movie like the 3rd time like this week. So
The 4th time, excuse me, the 4th.
well, there
time.
you go. Point improvement. He's got the eyes of a Doctor Who companion.
apparently. All right. Yep. But I think that'll do it for this week's episode. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the champion of the oppressed.
And I have been kicked off the island.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.